Well, let's hear more about that with our first question. So basically, let us know what are the main little inconveniences or even the biggest hardships that you have in Korea.
Well, the first thing that popped up in my mind when I
Mm,
heard the questions is, the language itself.
mm,
Because, like, as you know, like, every language is hard in its own way.
yeah.
But the funny thing about Korean is that it's not about, like, their grammar or, like, their pronunciation or even, like, the dialect, if,
Oh.
if I'm if I'm phrasing it right. The hardest thing for me when studying Korean is the fact that they speak at a fucking
Mm.
godly speed. It's like
True
it's
that.
like when I so I've been like into the Korean culture, not exactly into in a
Mm,
sense, but it's like I've been knowing a lot about the Korean culture at a really young age.
mm,
So that made me super aware of how the language works.
mm.
So like I came to Korea being super confident that yeah, I can totally master this language because I've been listening to this language ever since I was like 8 years old.
Mm.
Through K-pop, and like sometimes I watch drama with my sister and my mom.
Yeah, so Korean media in general.
Yeah, but one thing I didn't realize is how fast they speak because like when we were going to school at the language school,
Yeah.
it was alright, right? It's
Mm.
like they spoke at a really medium to like
Yeah, the
to
teachers were
us.
doing their best. They
Yeah,
understand we're foreigners learning now, so
yeah,
they do their
they
best.
spoke at a really medium to lower pace.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, if this is Korean, then it should be good, right?
Yeah.
Because I basically studied English like throughout my entire life, so I should know how to handle a language
Mm.
other than English. That's
Fair.
what that's what I that's why I initially thought. But then we but then like I go outside and then I order a cup of coffee, and it's like I stood there for like 30 seconds when it was like spitting bars at me, and I was like, oh yeah, who am I again? Like what am I here for? What's my life purpose? It's like, uh, yeah, it's not a fun experience. So
Mm.
the thing, yeah, like I said, thing about the Korean language is like at school they speak at a pace so that you can understand because you're foreigners. But
Mm.
like when you go outside, they speak at an incredible like godly speed that you cannot follow at all. And as a guy who just been in the country for like 2 or 3 months, that was like one of the
Biggest
most
struggles.
yeah one of the biggest struggles I had to go through in order to
Mm.
actually live in the country. And I think it went the same for all foreigners that come to Korea.
Yeah, like that's a pretty big thing. That is like if you do study in like a language school,
Yeah.
the change in pace once you leave the school and go outside and try to speak it, it's so big. Like sometimes, like if you go to a coffee shop or you go to a store, like
Yeah.
you just get the standard questions like, do you want ice in it, or
Yeah.
like, do you gonna need the receipt, or do you have like a customer card, like a point
Yeah.
card stuff.
Coupon and shit
Yeah,
like that.
so they're just asking these questions, and like with time you get used to it, so even if you don't actually hear and understand what
Yeah.
they're saying, you just kind of know, and you're just like, I can something, so it's okay, I don't need it. It's like,
Yeah.
so you just start passing it up. But once it's outside of that comfort zone, like once you start actually speaking to other people, like Korean friends or
Mm.
be it who it is, and they just start spitting bars at you, it's like
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on. Especially the moment they realize you can actually speak Korean, then that's when they go over. So it's like they
True.
start with English, and you're like, I can speak Korean though. And
Yeah.
then once they get
It's
that,
like
they go from
yes.
this end to this end
Yeah.
like in 0.5 seconds. They're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Exactly. Yeah.
rapper.
Yeah. That's one
Mm,
thing I really
mm,
really appreciate. I also really hate about like the Korean language.
mm.
It's fun and it's all fun in games until people start like fucking spitting bars at you, and you just stand there like with your eyes wide open and your mouth also wide open. You just stand there, listen to them for 30 seconds, and then they go like, "Do you understand?" And you just stand there like,
I
yeah,
guess,
yes,
yeah, it gets to the point where it's kind of like you kind of heard everything, but you didn't have enough time because we're not. 100% fluent like that.
Mm.
So even if you understand all the words, sometimes because they said it so fast, you kind of have to rearrange it in your head and be like, no, wait a second, give me a couple of seconds so I can rearrange
Like
what I
process
just
the
heard.
information.
Yeah, you need that processing time. So sometimes you're like, did I understand? Give me a second. I'm pretty sure I did, but I'm not 100% sure I did. It was
True,
like,
true.
I think I did. And then once you do check, like, or if you do ask them to repeat, it's exactly what you initially thought.
Mm.
So you were right, but you just don't trust yourself because they were going so fast. So
Yeah.
you're like, I think I know.
Yeah. And also like there's a fear of like being a burden to somebody else in the
Mm.
sense that it's like when you go to school, right? And
Yeah.
if there's something you don't understand, you raise your
Mm.
hand and ask the teacher about it.
Mm.
It goes the same for language, but it's just that like sometimes people get super into the story they're telling you. So at some point they stop the story and then they look at you and they give they give like gestures like it's kind of like asking you if you understand if you're following or not.
Yeah.
But you're so afraid of offending them because like if you don't understand, right? But if you say you don't understand, you may end up like offending them or like make them feel annoyed. So you just end up saying,
Mm.
yeah, of course I do. And then they go on with the stories, and then they continue with their story, and you just stay there being super stuck, not knowing what to do, and just accept the fact that you're a loser.
Yeah, it kind of makes you feel like you're drunk in
Yeah.
a sense. If you guys know what I mean, it's like when you get drunk and you're doing your best to listen to the conversation, but you can't focus hard enough. Except here, you're doing your best to focus and you are focusing, you just don't get it. But well, that comes with time. I'm pretty sure it's not as bad now after 2 years in
Yeah,
Korea.
I mean,
So
after living here for 2 years, I've become quite, fluent
mhm.
at the language myself. I'm not like native
Yeah, it's
fluent, right?
native level yet.
But like to like handling normal daily conversations or
Mm.
when it comes down to having fun with people, I'm quite fluent myself. And
Mm.
because like we tend to go party together a lot, not like clubbing and stuff, but we tend to go drinking and socialize with people a lot during our stay in Korea. That actually helped me improve my speaking skill by quite a large margin.
Mm.
So now like I still I still cannot talk to people at like a godlike speed like actual Korean people,
Yeah.
but I can listen to the conversation and I could follow up pretty well. Like I say 70-80%. Like
Mm.
answering the question still take me some time and like some processing time,
Mm.
but overall I can carry out a proper conversation quite easily, I guess.
Mm.
So it's like it's not as comfortable as speaking English to you guys, but yeah, it's quite good. I'm quite confident in that sense. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, fair enough.
If you want to compare between like my language, which is Vietnamese,
Mm.
and Korean, it's completely different because
Mm.
our language is really really similar to to English because like we both use the alphabetical system, which is
Mm.
like A B C D to Z and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also we're similar in terms of grammar.
Mm.
So in English or in our language, we put we put the subject first, and then we put the verb, and
Mm.
then like I like doing like I study.
Just
I
like
study math,
subject.
so subject and then verb and then the noun.
Mm.
But for Korean and also Japanese, it's like they put the noun before the verb. So it's like let's say for example now 수학을 공부한다. So it's like I study math, but 수학 is math. Math is a noun, right? They put the noun before the verb, and
So,
then they
yeah.
put the verb at the end of the sentence.
Yeah,
So
usually, yeah, that's true.
So for me, like learning Korean as a Vietnamese person
Mm.
is no different than learning Korean as like a
English speaker. Or,
an
mm.
English speaker. Yeah,
Mm.
so which also brings me to a point. Like the more I think about it, the more I realize that the reason why Korean and Japanese speak so fast
Mm.
is because like they want to convey their opinions and ideas in the shortest amount of time possible.
Mm.
But because like
Because of how the language is set up.
because like the subject of the sentence being the noun,
Mm.
is always put at the end of the sentence. So they always need to speed up the process through the entire sentence to make it to the noun, to to convey the idea or
Mm.
to express the opinions. So I think that's one of the bigger reasons why they tend to like speak at like lightning speed in
Mm.
Korean. I think that's I think that's one of the reasons probably.
Yeah, because if you don't get to the end of the sentence, there's like almost no way to know what was being said.
Exactly.
Because, like, for example, in English, you will say, I like. So it's like you already have the verb. So even
Yeah.
if you don't say what it is, people already know what you're trying
Yeah.
to say.
Oh,
you like
This
something.
this guy likes something, probably hentai.
Well, could be. But in Korean, conversely, is like you will say yourself, or you will say the subject, right?
Yeah.
You will say the person or object being affected by the action before saying the action itself.
Exactly.
So if you want to say I like cars, you basically say I cars
Something.
like.
Yeah.
So if you stop midway, it's like I cars.
So people
what? But
you bought a car, you like a car, you fuck a car.
Yeah,
it's like that. There's no way to know what you want to do with the car.
yeah,
You know, so it's like they always need to speed up through the process to get. Oh no, not the noun, but to get to the verb.
yeah,
Because
to
like
get to the verb.
Yeah, to convey the feelings and to express their
Mm.
their opinions. People need to know what they're doing with that noun right there. So yeah, so it's like it's still super weird for me. At first, when I came to Korea, I wasn't used to the systems,
Mm.
so my brain just like because like for the longest time in my life, I've always using the language, through the simple simple structure of like subject, verb, and noun.
Mm.
But now because of how the grammar works in Korean, I had to literally rewire my brain, and it took a lot of time and effort. And now that I got used to it, I started to become less fluent in English because like I started speaking Korean on a daily basis for the longest time now. Like I've been speaking like that almost every day, Korean, with my friends and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So at some point during that process, I started to notice myself pronouncing English words differently, weirdly, and inaccurately.
Yeah,
sense.
sometimes I have the same problem, especially with words like double E or EA.
Yeah.
So it's like speech and speech is like.
Yeah.
So I mispronounce them, or like ship and sheep is like
Yeah.
if I'm just having a normal conversation, I'll mispronounce. So it's like I want to say ship, but I'll say sheep. So it's like I was writing the ship. That's what I supposed to say, but I was writing the sheep, and then people are like, "You're on animals now." It's like, what? No, that's not what I.
You into bestiality now, Chacha? I can't believe you're that kind of person.
Nah. Anyways,
say that like that's why we always make this joke about us being like trilingual, because like Chacha and I both speak our mother tongue, and then we both speak like English and like
Korean.
Korean. So that's why we always make this joke about us being trilingual, but we're not fluent at
In
any of the
language.
At any of the languages. Yeah,
That's
a struggle. It's like you like it's impossible to balance between 3 languages. I mean, 2 is fine, right? But 3 is like three languages at the same time. It's like a brand new horizon.
And
so
it's ironic.
Yeah.
For me, being currently a translator and at some point a teacher, so
don't hide this guy.
So it's like, yeah, I hope my students do not watch this.
Don't hide this guy.
Do not be disappointed.
He's a con man.
I'm still fluent enough to teach. Do not worry about that.
Yeah.
Well, but what would you say? Like, so both of us, we pretty much learned English the same way. Where it's just like from a young age, we had English or American media in our lives, and it's like playing games, reading, listening to music. We just kind of naturally learned it. We never really sat down and we were studying word by word. Compared to Korean, where we actually went to school and learned it, like for a long period of time. So, do you reckon that if from a young age we had like the same amount of influence from the Korean media, do you reckon we would have been able to learn Korean as naturally as we learned English? Or is it just set up in such a way that even if we had it from a young age, it wouldn't have been as easy? What do you think?
I'm not sure about this question, But like from what I've experienced so far, English is easy in the sense that because they speak a lot slower, so you can catch up with the words. So like you can actually like learn new words on the go.
Mm.
Whereas in Korea, every time like you watch drama, like watch like reality shows, they speak in such a speed that like all the words just like scrambled together, and you
Mm.
cannot make out a single word what like of what they're saying
Mm.
unless you are a native speaker, in which you can like easily like identify each word that they're saying. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't think it would go the same way if I spent like most of my childhood watching like Korean shows and stuff like
Mm.
that.